Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. The idea of building a Globe Theatre in New York came to Barbara Romer on February 5th, 1999. The idea was wonderful, and the plan is proceeding with amazing speed and great accomplishment under her incredible vision and leadership. So welcome, Barbara Romer.
Thank you.
But please first tell us what happened on February 5th, 1999 that gave you this brilliant idea.
Well, I guess it really had started, I was studying in England. I was getting a PhD in Cambridge and was spending a summer in London. And saw in a Time Out magazine that for £5 you could go and be a groundling in the Globe. And I always loved Shakespeare, and I thought, well, that's nice.
What does that mean, a groundling?
Groundling is the person who stands in the open courtyard just in front of the stage, and those are the very cheap standing, well, not seats, but standing
And
tickets.
the Globe Theatre, let's just briefly say what the Globe Theatre is.
So the Globe Theatre was just rebuilt, opened in 1997, was Shakespeare's own theatre, which had the very first, the original theatre was opened in 1599, and so that's where Shakespeare and his company worked. And it had been closed down in 1642-43 by the Puritans, and then was rebuilt many, many years later by, on the effort of Sam Wanamaker, the American actor.
That's so great. And so you went.
So I was there the opening season, not knowing any of this. And so I just happened to say, oh, well, it's £5, I can go.
Yeah.
And I was amazed by the energy in that theatre, because the actors see the audience, and there's this incredible vibe, and I'd been to a lot of theatre, I always loved theatre, but that theatre was unique, it was very special. And I kept thinking about the name Globe, and about New York being quintessentially a global city, and about that. And in London, they've recreated 1599, exactly. So they're using, you know, the old mechanics, doing them by hand, the wooden pegs and so on. And I kept thinking,
And the outside is that
wood and the thatched roof.
Right.
It's the first thatched roof since the Great Fire of London.
Isn't
And
that
so on.
something?
Yeah. And so I was just intrigued and said, you know, what would that look like in the 21st century in New York? And that was something that started.
What were you studying when you were there?
I was getting a PhD in art history, French medieval manuscripts. Very related.
Well, it is. I mean, yes, it is.
But the idea then came in '99.
Right.
I was working at McKinsey & Company as a management consultant, because I always wanted to go into cultural management. And I'd worked for museums in Tokyo and in France, and I always thought I wanted to go back into culture and learn about the management of cultural institutions. And then on that day in February, it all kind of came together. That
You were already working at McKinsey?
Yes. And I kept, you know, and I was consulting, I don't know, cars or banks or something of the sort. And so that always that day kept coming back to me, and I kept thinking about a Globe in New York.
Now, where did you grow up?
I originally grew up in Germany until I was 15, and then Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, good. And then you came. So you thought about this Globe. You're at McKinsey. You're a management consultant, but you're a specialist in art history, basically, right? Yes.
Well, at the time,
you come up with this idea. So then, what did you do? You developed a plan all yourself?
Well, yes. I mean, I was.
How did you get the site?
Well, first I started playing with business models at 2 in the morning, and then I actually kept thinking, and then I transferred with McKinsey to New York.
You never got a business degree, though, or anything, so you just went from the, okay.
Yeah, and then, well, they put
you were
through
working for McKinsey in England?
2 years Germany, 2 years New York.
2 years Germany.
And so they put you through a training course, kind of like a mini MBA.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was really studying economics and all of that.
Yeah.
And at that time I was developing the business plan for this venture. And then in New York, I must have walked up and down the New York waterfront, I don't know, dozens.
You knew you wanted it to be on the waterfront?
Yes, I thought, because the Globe in London was on South Bank. You overlooked the river to look at London. And so I always thought this connection to the water, and that to me was just very romantic and very beautiful. And so this final site is quite amazing, because Governor's Island, by chance, after being closed to the general public 203 years later, is given back to New York. And on the northwestern corner is an old fort called Castle Williams. And that fort, as you see, is perfectly round, and it's 3 tiers high, and it happens to be the identical blueprint as the Globe Theatre. And I love the fact that Governor's Island, you look across the water to look at Manhattan, the same blueprint, and then the name of it is Castle Williams. And on the keystone it actually says Williams, and there's a period. So I was like, oh, well, that's really William S, isn't it? And
do you look for those signs? Is that what gives you encouragement? Yes.
I love it. You know, those are just kind of little winks which give you
so
energy.
So now we have this plan, and you have this beautiful model here. And it is to take this fort and build the theater inside of it.
Inside the open courtyard. And so perfectly preserving this gorgeous fort, which was built for the War of 1812 to defend America against the British. Again, I think very symbolic. And so I'm now working in partnership with the Globe in London. They've been very involved in the development of this new 21st century space, because we did a lot of workshops with them. What would you change about the theatre if you weren't reconstructing 1599, but were reimagining it in a way for modern times? And so the Globe has been involved in this. And then the architect, we kept thinking, who as an architect has taken national monuments of kind of global significance and has reimagined them in a successful manner? And so Lord Foster, who'd done the dome on the German Parliament, the beautiful roof of the British Museum that I first fell in love with. And so I approached him while still at McKinsey and basically begged them to do a pro bono model. And that was the beginning of our working relationship.
And he did in New York, in Manhattan, he's just built the building on top of the Hearst base.
Exactly. Right? And so again, that was a landmarked base.
And he does everything in a very modern, open. Is everything as open? I don't know.
It's very glass, and it's very open in that way. But what I always loved about his work was that it never tried to erase that historic base. And it tried to actually look at it and celebrate it even more so.
So the Globe Theatre, and there's a theatre company. It's not the Shakespeare Theatre. It's not the Royal Shakespeare.
That's correct.
It's a separate company.
Yes.
Do they do only Shakespeare at the Globe?
No, they don't. I mean, that's surely their kind of essence. But they've done some contemporaries as well. And they've also had a modern playwright. Peter Oswald has written a couple pieces for the Globe, actually. And I think that's very exciting, because the theatre is so unique, and so playing off what is different in that theatre and what works in an audience. So they've done that, and that's something that we very much want to incorporate in the new Globe, so that we invite playwrights to work.
So we want to talk about the actual structure, and then we also want to talk about the programming of it, all right?
Yes.
So we could take the roof off?
Of course, yes.
And
floor.
Then I hope that our viewers will be able to see this, but what happens, explain to us what happens, where the stage is, the lights.
So you walk through the original entrance, which is this corner, which was always open. The water is there, and so the Statue of Liberty is just behind it, and the views are really spectacular. And when you enter the structure, you actually first come into a museum, so that the history of the fort is explained, that it's, you know, why it was built, and then when school kids come, they learn about the War of 1812 and the history. And it's quite beautiful that actually the very first Dutch settlers arriving in New York Harbor stopped on Governor's Island in 1624. And so this kind of symbolic space where the old world changed into the new world, I think is really beautiful. And so that will all happen on the ground floor. And then the theatre is located entirely in the open courtyard, and it actually perfectly preserves. There are these two old stair towers from 1811, and it's inserted in the middle. And then the groundlings, again, are standing, so we can have $10 tickets. And there are 400 groundlings in this plan. But then even underneath the roof, because we want to be a modern theatre, we've inserted seats. So you could push a button and seats could pop up. So if you wanted to give a lecture or do a performance where people wanted to sit, you had that flexibility.
Yeah. On the ground floor. But still, for performances, there won't be seats. You'll stand for how much?
$10. Oh, whatever a movie basically costs.
And this, so go on. And we have 3 tiers.
And so the structure is exactly the same as the Globe Theatre, but from the workshops we've actually been informed that they would like to make it slightly smaller. And so we've taken those things into account, and we've worked with Arab Acoustics. They've actually pioneered what they call oralization, which is the kind of...
Wait a minute, let's not go so fast.
Sorry.
That's a company of, of sound engineers and designers, right?
Yes, and they have made this the world's most sophisticated oral space designed for the performing arts. And so I've sat in a sound lab and have listened to Hamlet on the stage of this very theatre.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So
and it's also in the midst of a busy harbor.
Exactly. And so that was what we were studying. We originally started wanting to do a retractable roof, but actually the helicopter noise and the airplane noises really seemed to make that very difficult. And I think it's very important for the island to have a draw which will be there all year round. And the Globe in London only plays from May to September.
Because they have an open.
Yeah, it's an open theatre.
In the middle, yes.
Yeah.
So will there be a museum about Shakespeare?
No, it's about New York, I think. I mean, there might be some rotating exhibitions as well, but I think it's very important to celebrate the site.
Yeah. Then what happens next is you then formalize a proposal. So you got Sir Foster to do a design.
Yes.
And then what did you do?
Well, I put together an artistic advisory board because I felt that we really needed to look towards kind of American leaders in the theatre to be instrumental in shaping this space, because I think symbolically a new globe for the new world is very laden in what people will expect, and to build a company, a strong company. And so I was trying to figure out who could really lead this from artistic point of view. And so Mark Rylance, who was the artistic director of the Globe for the last decade.
In London.
In London. So he's on our board, as well as Claire van Kampen, who is director of music there for the last decade, because music is very integral to the space. Then we also have Al Pacino, who has joined as somebody who loves Shakespeare, and together with Estelle Parson, who's also on the board, have led the Actor Studio for many years. Then we have Gordon Davidson, who founded the Mark Taper and ran that in LA, so we wanted to have more of an American board as well. We have Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Did you do all this by yourself?
Yeah, kind of.
Were you still working at the time?
I've now been doing this full-time for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So some of this
So
was
when
happening.
did we start? This started in 1999.
Yes. Yes, I was doing many things at the same time.
So you have now a wonderful board.
Yes.
That is reflective not only of the group in London, but also the country here and New York. And you have a whole detailed proposal. I mean, this is going to be a theater company.
Yes.
Which means what?
Well, the long-term dream is, because the island is so beautiful. I mean, they're still from the military leftover homes with wrapped around wooden porches, and you know they're all.
Oh, it's so beautiful! I've always wanted to live there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
right.
and so the proposal would be to actually, in the longer term, create a resident company. And so that the actors could actually live and work there in a way like a MacDowell colony,
right.
But within
now,
5
MacDowell
minutes.
colony is a colony that artists go to to think and produce.
Exactly.
Right.
And so here they could come together and work in a very romantic, very beautiful, quiet setting, but within 5 minutes of Wall Street.
And how long would the production season go? So, I mean, would this be a group that changes? Do you envision it changing every year, or?
I think the slots would be changeable, so that some interns, you know, who start as young actors, they might very well want to stay there for a longer term, because it's a school as well in a way for them. But the more renowned actors might just commit to a season.
Now, one of the other, so we have the theater company. You won't do just Shakespeare, you'll do all kinds of things, but with that theater company. But it may not go all year, and so the hall will be available for other things.
The idea, especially in the early years, is to really explore the theatre, and so invite other companies to play in there, and really think also about an American presence. And so we've just been very fortunate that Kenny Leon from Atlanta has joined as well, and so we're starting to discuss, you know, those kind of alliances.
That's a theatre company down there.
Yes, the True Colors.
So now you're a person who grew up for part of your life in Germany, and you went to college, I think, here, and then you went to graduate school in England, and then you worked for this company in Germany and Japan, and then you came here. And you developed this idea. What did you know about land use and planning and the government?
Not much. I think I was this over-eagle Cocker Spaniel just jumping around. Not much at all. I mean, I always said, you know, all I can do is try and find the best people who know about it, ask for their kind advice, and then take that on board.
So people have been discussing what to do with Governor's Island for how long? For a long time.
Well, it was transferred back about 10 years ago.
But before that, there was long discussion.
Absolutely.
What are we going to do with it,
Decades,
et cetera.
yes.
Right. And different planners and developers have come up with ideas, and they've presented them, and then they sort of disappear. They vaporize and go away. So now, what do you have to do? Is there an RFP out, a request for proposals for the use of the island?
It is for the use of the island. The whole island is 172 acres. 150 acres belong to the city and state. There's a body called GIPEC, the Governor's Island Preservation and Education Corporation.
Say it again.
The Governor's Island Preservation and Education Corporation, which is a body half appointed by the city and half appointed by the state. And they own and oversee the development of 150 of the acres. And then 22 acres incorporating the castle is the National Park Service, since this is a national monument. And so while there's an RFP out for the 150 acres, which is due May 10th, and I'm actually really optimistic it's moving ahead, and it's all moving at great pace, and it seems really now becoming solid, which is brilliant. And that's under the leadership of Dan Doctorow, the deputy mayor.
Oh, that's from the city, right?
Yes.
Because the city owns it. So that's for the acreage, but not including this.
That's correct.
And how many people are responding? Do they know? Do you know?
No, I don't. I think when they had a request for an expression of interest last year, and I think that got about 100 responses. But so since then they've really, reached out and so on. So I think. And
when you come back with an RFP, you come back with the financials all worked out, so that it's feasible.
Yes.
But whoever wins really doesn't have an impact on you.
No, I mean
except that nobody's planning. How do they feel about your plan?
Well, I can't speak to that. I hope they're very happy about it. No, I mean, the education center that we're proposing is next door to the castle, so that is on city-state land.
I see.
That's kind of the
so
big
are you
hospital.
part of that?
So we are replying to the RFP for the housing component and the educational component.
And is your plan incorporated in any other developers' plans?
No, we've tried to really let those decisions be up to GIPEG in a way that, it's a puzzle for them, and so I didn't think it was smart for us to link ourselves too firmly to any other proposal.
Is the City University one of the proposals?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I hope so.
That would be a natural alliance, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. No, and I'd met probably a couple of years ago now with Matt Goldstein.
Yeah.
And so I love the possibilities. What I think is beautiful is that GIPEG kind of has this three-pronged mission, which is preservation, education, and recreation, and we fit all three of those. And so, in a way, I hope that we would be very compatible with other proposals.
There isn't a general housing project that you've heard of, is there?
No, I mean, because of the deed restrictions, when the island was given for $1, it doesn't allow for private residencies. But things like a university or a school would be allowed, which are more temporary residences. So bed and breakfast, hotels, conference center.
And there's is there an amusement park kind of thing that people have suggested?
That has definitely been suggested in the past. I don't know how much that will feature in this mix.
And then Washington, though, is the agency that controls this.
Yeah, the National Park Service.
And they don't have a deadline.
They
don't have an RFP
They're currently
yet.
in their, what they call a GMP, their General Management Plan, and they're working through their draft proposal.
And how do they come up with that plan?
It seems to be, well, that they've been, what for us was very encouraging, there were some public scoping
There
sessions.
were some public scoping.
And in the large one, which was organized by the Governor's Island Alliance, this proposal was unanimously embraced, and then Community Board 1 actually passed a resolution supporting this, and on our friends list are people like Senator Clinton, Senator Schumer, and so on. So I was very much hoping that that would be meaningful. I'm not as hopeful right now, I have to be honest about, and I think that's the struggle we'll be fighting. And I think...
So how do we support it? How do we let the federal government, who in the federal government makes this decision? Is it in the parks? It's the
National Park Service.
And that's part of the Department of Interior?
That's correct.
And they don't have a secretary right now?
Right now, as of 3 days ago, yes.
So that makes it all exciting.
Yes. No, but I mean, the good thing is they always say that this is a national monument which belongs to the people of America. Mm-hmm. And I keep saying that in New York Harbor, we have seen national monuments being transformed into beautiful, globally visible cultural beacons like the Statue of Liberty, which was placed on top of sister fort, also from 1811, called Fort Wood, as a pedestal. And the entire world knows the Statue of Liberty.
Can you go into Fort Wood?
Well,
when you go to the Statue of Liberty,
you
just pass through, but it doesn't have any exhibition space or anything else in it, does it? I don't think so.
Well, you in a way pass through it in the hollow, yes. But I would hope that this will attract thousands and thousands of people to theatre who will then also learn about the history.
But how are they going to get there?
Ferries. Well, or we now have seen an exciting proposal by Calatrava for gondola even.
Oh my goodness.
Right,
so that doesn't become part of your problem?
I hope not.
I mean, it would seem to me that the city has to provide that transportation if they have the thing.
Well, and I think if plans for Governor's Island proceed as we're hoping they will, there should be a much, much larger number of people wanting to go to the island than just 1,200 people per performance. And so the gondola proposed would move about 3,000 per hour. And I mean, I've looked at other theatres who can only be reached by ferry in the world, who have sometimes capacity.
Where are they?
There's the New Opera House in Copenhagen. That main stage is 1,700, and they have some smaller stages that's reached by ferry. There's actually a theatre called the Theatre in the Harbour in Hamburg, which is 2,300 or so, which is only reached by ferry. Then again, Cirque du Soleil on Randall's Island was mostly a ferry-based operation, and they actually had 10 shows a week. So I think, for me, I also have to say that the first time I was on that ferry, I was just, the symbolism of getting onto a boat is quite stunning, and the views from there are spectacular.
It already sets you into this mood, doesn't it, that you then go to the prize. I mean, you're a young person. I don't like to ask, I never ask people how old they are. I tell everybody how old I am.
35, it's not a
35
secret.
years old, and you had this vision.
Yes.
I just find it amazing. Did you have a history of such persistence?
Craziness?
No, persistence.
I'm stubborn. I'm a
stubborn.
stubborn person, definitely.
And are you a creative person?
Yes.
You must be.
Yeah. And I enjoy that part.
Yeah. Were you surprised at the complexity of having a community accept a project like this? I mean, you know, the community board, the different levels, the government, the people that you've met, and the agency people, and all those people you have to go see.
Yes, I think in kind of looking hind view, you realize that. And it feels like I've been doing this for a week, and then I look at my diary and I go, goodness, I met that person over 3 years ago. And so I think all the layers and so on I hadn't at all perceived. And I think that's probably a good thing.
I think so. Don't you think maybe if you knew, you might have had more?
No, I still would have done it. But I always say that I guard my naivete, because I think it's what keeps me going. I don't want to know the 20,000 hurdles coming up.
I totally agree with you. I mean, when I'm a politician, or was a politician by day, and to be naive is the only way to really pursue it, because the minute you become part of it, then you've lost all your ingenuity and energy.
You don't even think of some problems that might exist, because they don't sometimes seem natural. You know, I mean, to me, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world. It really does. I mean,
now this costs money. So what happened with that?
Well, I was able to raise $500,000 thus far. So really,
and how do you do that?
Smile a lot and beg.
Do you go out to dinners and to different?
A little bit.
Have you identified? Do you get a list of people that you think would be interested?
Yes. No, absolutely. We have what we lovingly call our Facebook. But I also have to say, the first 2 years, I saved my money at McKinsey. As a management consultant, was not making a bad salary, and I put that aside to allow for me to study this feasibility. And I would have never approached somebody asking for money if I hadn't put in my own, and if I hadn't really felt that that was something I could fully stand behind and know this is going to work. And so I've really just more recently really stepped up and said, you know, I'm now comfortable, we're 501c3 and all of that.
Which means you're deductible.
Yeah.
So that anybody who gives contributions. And are you soliciting small contributions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any. You know, yesterday we got $10, which makes me very happy.
And you have a wonderful website.
Yes.
And people can go to that and make a donation on that. And also learn in more detail, really, all the different plans and see it. I don't know if we talked about all these little people who are in this theater. How many? You said you counted them?
Yeah, they're 968, I think. But we might have killed a couple lately.
Now, the capacity of this theater is larger or smaller, just by a few?
It's smaller. It's 400 smaller.
400 smaller than the Globe Theatre in London. But you need some government money in this, don't you?
Yes. And so I had looked at benchmarks over a history of cultural institutions being built, and so I've used those in the business plan. And I hope that that's something.
And have you received any kinds of commitments or interest?
Interest, absolutely. I haven't yet really pushed very hard either, because, you know, I mean, it's right now we're really just asking for interest and for pledges. I mean, since we don't have at all ownership or partnership about this site, I couldn't possibly raise money specifically for the castle, but for our own operational funds and so on, that is a possibility.
I see. That's a very interesting and important point.
Absolutely.
Since you don't have it. Have other cultural groups been helpful? You know, and the people who've been through this, and the landmarks people in the city, and the arts groups, and
I've been blown away. And I personally love having meetings, because they just give you more energy.
Right, and you always get a convert. You're successful. Have you ever had anybody say, "I hate this project"?
No.
No.
Hopefully I'll stay that way.
So there's a fort in Lower Manhattan that has been restored, and who paid for that? Mostly, did they get money from They got money from the city. They got capital money from the city, I think.
Well, the restoration of that castle was also very much because it's a transportation hub in the harbor, and so since that's where you buy the tickets to go to the Statue of Liberty. So I think that was some federal funding. But I've made it very, very clear to the federal government and the National Park Service that we would not look for a cent from the federal government to support this, in addition to what they're legally required to. They have to stabilize the site. There's asbestos in there right now and so on. So independent of our proposal, if it were just a museum, they would have to restore
do it anyway.
And so the new Globe proposal is not costing them a cent. Actually, on the contrary, it's taking it off their books, because our operations will provide for the maintenance of this structure in the future. And it is in disrepair. It's really dilapidated. I mean, the sandstone is crumbling.
Well, if people go to your site, they can see that.
Yes,
they can see the pictures, and it's a very, I mean, you know that you want to do something about it, and this seems to me to be the ideal thing. What's your next step, or what are we to look for in the papers? You had a big launch party last week where you presented this idea to the general public. Was that the idea?
Well, and the idea was really, I think we're coming to a point where if the theory is that, you know, America needs to speak and say that this is what we would love to have in the harbor, then we need to allow people to know about this. And so I felt the time had come to really make the general public aware of it. And so it's really just, we showed a short documentary about the project, and I just wanted them to know, and also show the support that we've already enlisted. And so then the immediate next step for us is May 10th, the request for proposal for GIPEC, which we'll be filling out. And then we're just starting to really think about a workshop season to involve actors and directors and build the artistic.
So we've come to the end of our time, but we can appeal to our viewers to look at your website.
Please do.
And to participate in supporting this wonderful project, because it does have, it's an exciting, wonderful project created by an exciting, wonderful person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronnie.
If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.